Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, it gets worse. Forbidden Steve Tech comes to the limelight. Players dropped left and right. And one of the big three organizations running it big in Smash Brothers Ultimate has gone belly up. Who would have seen this coming? We're here to discuss it. Hello and welcome to We The People. My name is Michael Cottrell, your host. I'm joined by my twin brother, Matthew Cottrell. Matthew, what do you think about this? What happened? Everything was so good when we kicked Panda out of the scene.
Yeah, it's not a smashing good time anymore now, is it? Yeah, no, this is honestly, this is just the ultimate irony, you know. So what we're alluding to here with another one of the major organizations that participates in the Smash community to go belly up is Beyond the Summit, which, you know, Beyond the Summit started with Dota. They've been involved with so many other games as well. But you know, it's interesting because they are closing up shop. I don't know if it's just due to they're not making enough money to justify having the staff that they have, so they went ahead and let their employees go, and are officially dissolving, if I understand that right. Although I did read in the statement that they were saying that they're open to suggestions for continuing, something towards the end of that. But it is interesting, Michael, because, you know, we've been covering the Smash drama since the inception of this podcast, and it's the first video we did. And it's really been interesting to see the developments from everything that happened early on to getting more of Alan's side of the story with Panda. And now we're at an interesting place because one could look at this and say, well, you know, Beyond the Summit, this probably doesn't have anything to do with Smash. But the irony in all of this is that Panda was figuring out ways to make all of this more profitable for everybody, including BTS. You know, I think Alan was more hell-bent on collaborating with them than anybody. And so it's just interesting that, you know, at this particular juncture, you know, as soon as VGBC is in a place where they don't know how many tournaments they're going to be able to run, if they're ever going to have this commercial license, it's not long after that all of a sudden these major esports organizations start dropping their top players. You know, T1 parted with MKLeo and TSM parted with Tweak. And then after that, we're, you know, in this place where BTS is no longer existing. And so you just wonder, like, are people, you know, are these major esports organizations jumping ship with Smash? And, you know, is you know, what Panda was trying to do as far as making more money, would that have resulted in a different fate for BTS? You know, it's interesting.
I would venture to say, yeah. I would venture to say Nintendo's involvement would, at least for the next year, create some extra excitement and some fear of missing out from sponsors to get ads with, like, Mario inside of them. Like, that would have been killer, an incredible opportunity for a lot of different brands. Now, the thing that's happening in the greater esports sort of industry is definitely something that is influencing this whole situation. It's no secret that esports bleed money. They have been funded by venture capital money, and as it's running dry, everybody's pulling out and cutting the players that don't really bring in the big bucks. Because, yeah, it's the party's over. This grand experiment is not going right, which is kind of crazy to me because while esports is notoriously unprofitable, there is an audience. There is a version of this that makes sense that you can do that they're just not hitting right. And if Alan was doing anything to help bring that to reality, then good on him. And apparently BTS did not have it figured out. You know, Mewtwo King, the famous, I mean, he's been playing Super Smash Bros. Since God was born. He recently got back onto his YouTube grind, and he was talking about BTS, where he had heard that there was some kind of licensing issue with broadcasting that is largely the reason why BTS can't continue. Now, this is just kind of hearsay, but he is someone who would probably know that, and he doesn't have some kind of ulterior motive of, like, defaming anybody. Excuse me. So I don't think that this information is necessarily incorrect or misinformed. He'd have no reason to share it otherwise. And it lines up very interestingly with something that Alan was alluding to in his statement, that something that BTS was doing was putting the entire scene at risk. Where I don't know what that was, or if like it was about certain broadcasting permissions or anything like that. It doesn't even sound like it had to do with Nintendo. According to U2 King, it was with the other game that they did. So I think they're referring to Dota. But it is interesting. Through a cursory Google search, I found that they do not permit people to co-stream their events, where it's like, yeah, man, you're kind of like lightly enforcing a copyright on someone else's material. So that gets you in a weird legal gray area. Like, you know, what are they going to do? DMCA you when they don't own the copyright? But yeah, so the whole community's in shambles. I guess you guys got what you wanted, and the gravy train's still rolling with Steve. I mean, after that, we could just go down the list and just ban every character that makes us angry.
Well, yeah, I mean, and my whole thing is what's really funny about what's going on right now is if you look at the Smash scene, everybody's so fixated on this whole, you know, Steve discourse on, you know, there's that new tech that was found that Steve can fall out of multi-hit moves. And so people are saying, you know, this is grounds for a character ban. And while I can absolutely see that. I don't like fighting Steve. I'm absolutely fine with the character being banned if just to offer my 2 cents on that. But I just think it's funny that like the Smash scene is like crumbling to pieces and everybody's fixated on, you know, is you know, should we allow Steve like character bans, or it's too early to do this? The tech might not even matter, blah, blah, blah. It's like what might not even matter is if you have a scene or not. I mean, like that's just what gets lost in this, that you can just tell that a lot of these people are immature at heart because they don't even see what's happening in front of them. I mean, Panda's out. BTS is out. Now you're just left with VGBC, and they were already saying they don't know how they're going to continue operating without a commercial license. Now, they just held an event, Level Up Expo, a couple of weeks ago, and, you know, I don't know why they were able to do that and not other events, but, you know, it's just,
Well, with Level Up Expo, that was an event that was happening anyway. They were going, and I think that's a convention that has like a bunch of other stuff that's happening. So, you know, those sort of events are safe. And what VGBC is doing in some of those places is they will give some kind of fee to the event holder, and then they'll take all the video content and distribute it through Twitch and YouTube. I believe that's the deal that they have. And BTS had a lot of these deals with smaller tournaments too. So honestly, I mean, you know, in a weird way, VGBC's probably going to benefit from this out of, you know, all the groups involved, because they will be able to scoop up a few more of those. And then it's like, you know, they won't get into a bidding war where I'm sure BTS was paying them more than VGBC would. And that was sort of the deal with a lot of these events. But now that's gone, and now you've pretty much got one Smash group to stream on.
Yeah, now you've essentially created a monopoly, and it's just, I don't know, man. All of this, there's just so much irony in all of this, because everybody painted VGBC like they were the victims, Panda was the enemy, and now you're in a situation where VGBC is the only one that comes out of this, you know, being the beneficiary, you know, and that's just really ironic because, you know, by them doing what they did, now they're the only players left in the game, no pun intended. So there's someone in the Smash community that, you know, everybody thinks is, a lot of people don't like him because he's kind of shed light on a lot of what's wrong with the community technicals, which, you know, I just think it's funny because he even pointed this out, that when this happened, you know, that, you know, the extra money that Panda was trying to generate, you know, may have prevented this happening to BTS, you know, because like you were talking about, some of the deals they were talking about getting done, you know, would have been massive. And, you know, obviously, again, BTS is involved with other games besides Smash, but, you know, some of the deals they were talking about, like, could have changed their entire business outlook as a whole. And so, you know, it's just, like I said, all of this is just very ironic that we're at this point when, like, now we went from having a scene and they wanted to get rid of Panda and they're the bad guy to, like, the Smash scene is dying now.
Yeah, what's funny too is that there's no, I don't know, you know, the way it was kind of posed when the original drama started happening in December, it seemed like it was everybody against Panda, but Uh, Gimmer has made no sort of statement, has shed no tears on behalf of Beyond the Summit, and I find that kind of interesting. I find it kind of interesting, which I don't know. Let me put on my tinfoil hat here. I'm going out of bounds. I'm going sicko mode for a second. Doesn't this kind of speak to the intentions of the Smash World Tour circuit to like try and be the biggest and the best Smash space, and not really taking a liking to these new Beyond the Summit and Panda guys who haven't been here since the beginning, like you have, didn't slay Project M in cold blood like you did. You know, it's just interesting. I don't know anything about it to say whether it's here nor there, but it's fascinating. You look at all this and look at all that celebration of, we don't need Nintendo, we're the grassroots organizations. I don't think that's how people actually feel, at least the people who are putting on the show for you. I mean, sure, it feels good to say that, but, you know, as soon as Ultimate tournaments stop paying out, Hungrybox is going to stop showing up. You know, he's going to stream it at home and make more money. As soon as there's no money on the line, people like MKLeo or Tweak are just not going to play the game that much. You know, they'll be these hidden secret boss Wi-Fi warriors, and they'll never get the chance to compete. You need money to make these things happen. And I'm speaking specifically to Ultimate, because Melee is just a different beast. It'll never die. It is much more of a hobby sort of esport than one that people are trying to make a living on. And, you know, Ultimate's lifespan is immediately done the moment that a new game comes out. And I think that's the silver lining here. I think Nintendo's probably going to try and do this whole rigmarole again once the new game comes out. But, man, who do they partner with? The guy that they already told no, and then he launched his tournament anyway, and, you know, then got salty about it and tried to, like, cancel Nintendo on the internet when his tournament got shut down? Or do you go with the other two guys who are dead?
Right. Well, and that's the thing. As far as it pertains to VGBC, I mean, I think they burnt that bridge. I mean, if you're Nintendo, how do you ever work with those guys again? Like, it's like you got mad at them because you couldn't circumvent the process and run your circuit, you know, the proper way, or you know, like Panda had been, you know, trying to work this deal for a couple of years before they were good to go. And, you know, VGBC just comes in and they're like, well, we want it now. And what are we going to do? Cancel our tournament? No, it needs to be announced. It needs to happen. You know, I don't know how you ever work with those guys again if I'm Nintendo.
You don't. I mean, I don't know. They also are, I could also see Nintendo collaborating with previous enemies like Universal Studios, but much less of an opportunity here to, you know, as opposed to making a theme park in a Mario movie. Enjoy arguing about whether Steve should be in the game or not. You know, have fun with that. And, you know, there's so much on the line. We're going to see who deserves that $12 at the end of the tournament.
Well, and that's the thing. Something I was going to bring up is you were talking about once there's no money involved, these players are going to stop showing up. And one thing I'll say is there's never been a lot of money in Smash. I mean, a lot of these guys essentially do it as a hobby, but herein lies the difference. See, when you talked about, you know, Hungrybox, MKLeo, Tweak, the thing with all three of those guys is they were sponsored. You know, so they had esport organizations that were, you know, they worked with. And so if I'm not mistaken, when you're sponsored, a lot of times that means they're helping you out as far as, you know, purchasing flights, purchasing, you know, a place to stay, you know, things of that nature. And so that's why you'll notice in Ultimate, like, there's people who are great players, but you don't see them at every tournament. And the reason being is they're not sponsored, you know, and so they don't have the resources to always be able to up and travel to another location to compete in a tournament, you know, because traveling is extremely expensive, you know. So that's one of those things right there where, like, you know, if there's no money in it, that's one thing. There's a lot of these people who just do it anyway, but part of the reason they do it is so they can get sponsored by, you know, an organization. And so once that's out of the picture, you know, like there's not going to be a means for a lot of these guys to compete. But one thing I think is interesting in all of this that we kind of, glossed over a little bit. And I think it's interesting that no one's talking about it, but the fact that we brought up MKLeo and Tweak have been, their organizations have parted ways with them. And I just think the timing's so interesting that just out of the blue, those guys get dropped from their organizations, like a few days apart. I want to ask, do you think that some of these bigger esports organizations are looking at what's going on in the Smash community and seeing it as like not being worth it, not being able to make the kind of profit they want, and they're jumping ship? Do you think that this will start happening with a lot of the other sponsored players within the Smash scene? Because another guy just left out was Sonics. His esports organization just parted ways with him as well.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot more of this, and you're going to see a lot more of it regardless of the game that we're talking about. Certain other games, like maybe Street Fighter, that's having this gigantic $2 million Capcom Cup, will probably be safe for a while because, again, they're on that marketing train of like, we've got a new product to sell, so the publisher is going to be very interested in making those deals happen. But I don't think it's too coincidental that, I would believe Occam's razor would say that the reason that all these players are getting dropped is because sponsors are falling out, and the sponsors falling out is what's causing, things like BTS to shut down. But I don't know. It all hitting at the same time is very interesting because, yeah, it does lend credence to this idea that nobody likes what's happening here. And you gotta imagine that the chances of, what is the benefit of having like a Smash Ultimate player as opposed to any other fighting game? If there's some sort of big Nintendo event like they did for Ultimate, they had that invitational tournament where they brought all the best players out. You're getting some incredible exposure for your players, your team, and the brands that you're involved in. But you take all that out, and it's like, man, there's not really much happening here. I'm just gonna be flying this guy around everywhere to go to these tiny tournaments that are going to continue to shrink because the DLC players are driving all the, bottom and middle players out of competition, and there's less enthusiasm for the scene because there's nowhere to grow. Sure, the top players of these regions are going to farm these regionals, and Genesis will continue to be huge and probably the most important tournament of the year. But besides that, yeah, it's gonna be looking pretty dry out here. So as a esports organization that's probably in the red and probably in trouble of shutting down themselves, yeah, you gotta make these cuts because esports as an industry they're outside of that venture capital backed let's waste as much money as it takes sort of mentality that happens at the start of new industries. And now reality's hitting, the economy's hitting, and there's just not, you're going to see these sort of cuts industry wide. But the interesting part is that there's the Melee guys aren't getting cut. Leffen's still on the same team that Tweak was on, and Hungrybox is still sponsored. It's interesting. I wonder if they will be somewhat safe because while Melee is notably smaller in a lot of respects, it's a reliable small thing and not in such flux right now, which if there's anything big established businesses hate, it's uncertainty.
Yeah. Melee's withstood the test of time and, has been shown to be a surefire thing, even being such a grassroots thing. But that's what I'm saying is you're saying that, you think that a lot of these players are going to get canned from their esports organizations, but I just think it's very interesting that it seems to be happening to specifically Super Smash Bros. Ultimate players and all in essentially the same week, and I just find that really peculiar. The timing of it just is very odd. And like you just pointed out, TSM parts ways with Tweak, but Leffen's still there. And I know Leffen, the reason for him probably being able to stick around is the fact that he plays other fighting games and is really good. He was great in Dragon Ball FighterZ. He's great in, Guilty Gear or Strive or whatever that is. I just think it's really odd that it seems to be happening to Smash Ultimate players right now. And, it'll be interesting to see if some of the other ones, like you mentioned, Hungry Boxes with Liquid, I think DeBuzz and Riddles are sponsored by them as well. It'll be interesting to see if that happens to them too. I think the players that are with Moist will be safe because Ludwig and Charlie seem to be, I guess, like they want to try and do this different, and they seem to, they made that video that seems to highlight what the problem with esports organizations is, and so maybe they think they figured something out, but I don't know.
It's probably
man.
a nice tax write-off too.
Yeah, that too. But I don't know. I just think this is, all these things are just signs to me, man. We both believe in God. We believe in signs, and sometimes like certain things keep happening in succession to try and tell you something. And I don't know, man, there's just a part of me that feels like this is a sign that the Smash Ultimate community in particular is dying. It started with Panda. It's been continuing with esports organizations jumping ship from Smash Ultimate. And now BTS is no longer involved in this. And so all you're left with is Gimmer, bald Gimmer, who essentially burned any bridge he had. I mean, like Nintendo's not going to want to work with you. If Panda somehow ever got back involved with this, which they won't, but if they did, it's not like that's going to happen again. Like, it's just, I mean, where does the community go from here?
I don't know about all that. I mean, people are going to continue to play Smash, and like, while it might be notably smaller, it will just revert back to those kind of Smash 4 days where, if you win every single tournament in a row, you can make McDonald's money. And that it's a shame, but it is happening kind of across the board. I'm looking at some recent articles. January 13th, BMW cut spending on esports partnerships. Washington Post discontinued their gaming and esports coverage, laying off 20 of its staff. You see a lot of stories like this. Polaris cuts ties with entire Dota 2 roster. Blizzard appears to have completely cut funding for its esports. And, you look at all this and the picture is pretty grim all around. I think that there's a lot to figure out in what is still a very new thing in online marketing. It matters if you're making any sort of return on investment. And so, of course, BMW isn't making their money back on this. It's just, especially with the way that they do ads on Twitch and in places like that, it's just super cringe. It's like, oh, here's where the gamers are. It's, man, they're just normal people who happen to like video games.
Oh, I know.
You don't have to be so.
Stand the ads on Twitch.
Yeah,
it's like they're just not normal ads. Like you would never see something like that on
hey,
network
gamers,
television.
You ever want to take a gamer break and eat a piece of gamer pizza? Hold the pepperonis. Papa John is here to save the day.
Yeah, it makes like video game sound effects. Like,
yeah, let me get back to my gaming, Dad. Give me that. Slide the pizza under the door. And don't say a word.
It's really bad.
And, I know from personal experience working in marketing that Twitch is the hardest platform to succeed on at all. And so, yeah, there are a lot of brands are not super excited about dumping money into this. And while there was that initial FOMO of like, oh, if we don't take this, then someone else is, and it's going to be this exciting new way to market to people. And some of that has stuck, and it's true. It's just instead of spending a bunch of money on some like big tournament package with BTS or whatever, you would just do a Papa John's deal with like Hungry Box or something like that, give them a fraction of the money and see similar ROI. Or you pick like 10 Hungry Boxes and you get them interspersed, and you get them not only on some kind of live stream, but you get them on the VODs. And there's much more of a culture of that everywhere else besides Twitch. And so I think there's a lot of problems, and honestly, Twitch isn't looking too great either coming in through this, because the only competitive advantage I feel like Twitch really has over YouTube at this point is people say that the chat experience is better, and that is the undisputed home of esports. But if esports continue to lose money and there's more shakiness there, then man, what does Twitch have at that point besides draconian contracts that they scare people into?
I totally disagree on the whole chat thing, man. It just seems like people, I don't know, man. It's like, I think it's a great place if you're like a 15-year-old and you like fart jokes. I mean, like, I don't get people who participate in Twitch chats, to be honest. I just, for one, like, if there's enough people watching something, it's not like your comments ever going to get seen, but it's also like just a bunch of people being extremely childish, you know, repeating like copy pastas or whatever they call those. Like, I don't know. Twitch is like brain rot to me.
I'm not a fan of of Twitch chat. It's not my thing. But I've heard streaming people who do it for like 50 hours a week say that the chat is better on Twitch. So, you know, I'm taking their word for it because I don't, I mean, I'm going to date myself here, but the first thing I always do when I look at a video like that is I just turn off the chat. I just don't, I don't care. Like, I just, you know, most people are just spamming some kind of weird like emoticon or racial slurs, but you know, I'll leave that to the guys on Twitch. But yeah, so anyway, that's the Smash situation. It's looking a little grim, and I would expect it to be pretty quiet until the next Smash game comes out. And man, that's your chance, guys. You better figure out, you better go and beg Alan to come back, because, you know, I don't think anybody else is going to light that much money on fire to try and get into the scene. The only reason he was coming in like he did is because he had such a history with Smash, doing the Show Me Your Moves podcast, being on Smash boards. But like, I think as far as people with lots of money that are willing to light it on fire for the sake of making Super Smash Bros. An esport, you're kind of running out of them.
Well,
you know,
especially with all the controversy that surrounded the Smash Ultimate scene, like, who wants to get involved with that? You know, someone who's trying to make the scene profitable, right? Like, why would anyone want to touch that with a 10-foot pole after everything that's gone on in the Smash community? And then, like I said, you just look at how VGBC turned on Panda, you know, as soon as it didn't play out the way that they wanted it to. And, you know, it's like, who wants to deal with that? I mean, like, that's why I just feel like, you know, it's funny. I was listening to Tweak's podcast, and Charles on there was talking about how the Smash community, you know, like the Smash 4 Brawl Ultimate community, but they were talking about how they've been here before in 2015 and this and that, but I don't think this is at all the same thing. I really don't, because I don't think the Smash community outside of Melee has ever really been that popular. You know, like, if you look at Brawl at its competitive height, you look at Smash 4, I mean, they're highlighting 2015. Smash 4 came out at the end of 2014, and Smash 4 didn't catch on in the competitive community either. You know, like, man, you and I are the biggest Smash fans ever. I always pay attention to the competitive community. Like, I can't tell you how many, like, especially with Melee, I've watched so many tournaments. I've watched so many old matches on YouTube. I've done the same for Smash 64. And, you know, Brawl, not so much, but especially not Smash 4. I swear I've seen probably less than 200 sets total in Smash 4. I didn't even know for the longest they only did 2 stock matches, because that's how slow that game is and boring to watch. But that's why I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't think the community's been here before, because the difference was nobody liked Smash 4. You know, Ultimate is actually insanely popular, though. You know, it's been more popular than Melee has as far as the competitive scene, and that's saying something. You know, I know Melee's been around for a long time, but, you know, it's also been tried and true where, you know, I don't know if I expected that from Ultimate. Ultimate has so much appeal, and so many people love watching these tournaments. And so the fact that nobody wants to get involved when there's such a large, you know, fan base for this content just speaks volumes to me.
Yep. And so there you have it, folks. Another swirl in the toilet bowl going down into the sewer.
I got to ask you one super quick question. We can end on this, but do you think if Gimmer could do it over again, do you think he would?
I mean, yeah, with the information that his stuff was going to get canceled anyway. That's why you don't start working with people and then make decisions behind their back or make decisions without their input. As soon as you started talking to Nintendo, you had to realize that the game changed. You know, the game was moving from, oh, well, you know, I don't care what you're doing because it's not bothering me, to, if we're going to work together, we have to do it exactly the way I want it to. And honestly, maybe Nintendo didn't want to have 2 circuits happening that year. Maybe Nintendo should have been more honest about that. But even if they told Gimmer no, I feel like because it was announced before a lot of those conversations were even happening, that I don't think he was ready to take no for an answer, because he was not going to watch Panda become the number 1 spot for Smash content. He was just not going to let that happen.
Well, and that's why you saying you think he probably would, I disagree, man. I think he got exactly what he wanted out of this. I mean, like you said, they're the only player left in the game now. Now everything essentially goes through VGBC, until otherwise. And so I don't know, man. I think it's one of those things that, indirectly, I don't know if he didn't want this to happen, because it only benefits them. Obviously, if they can't operate with a commercial license, that hurts them from being able to host their own tournaments and whatnot. But I mean, the fact that, where else are you going to find Smash Ultimate sets now? It's all going to be through VGBC. So
that is true.
Boot Camp. So I don't know.
I don't know how much money they're going to make from that, but it's probably going to be enough for him to get paid and, make whatever little chunk of money. They've been doing fine all these years, and they will continue to do so, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, I guess he could put that two Smash games that he killed on his resume, Project M and Ultimate, because the series of dominoes all started with their little whiny article. Nintendo's so mean and Panda's so mean. I just wanted to say it, I just wanted to tell the whole internet and all my following that these people are mean and they're taking away all our fun and our money. Nothing's my fault. But, just wanted to let you know, please go attack them. It's just funny internet stuff.
Yeah. But and when you just think about too, how there was no solution involved in that, it really was just that. It was whining. It was counterproductive. All it did was hurt the scene at large. And I think I remember him even saying something to the effect of, he would never want to jeopardize the scene. And it's like, look at where we're at, dude. And I'm sorry. I think if the Panda circuit, still happened and everything happened when Panda was involved, I really don't think we would be at this point. I know BTS shutting down could just be a coincidence, and, players like MKLeo, Tweak, and Sonics getting dropped by their organizations can just be a coincidence. But I just think there's no profit to be made in this anymore. And so I just think it's going to go back to being this smaller thing that, it kind of was in the time of Smash 4. But, that'll...
Which, is fine. But I'll miss the summit events were super fun. I love how creative great. That was, and just... it's an easy bake concept. Like, just gather all the people. It's like you always wanted to see Akala fight MKLeo, and it's, when is it going to make sense for this 15-year-old kid to go to America, or for MKLeo to go from Mexico to Japan? It's like, never. You're just going to have to pay for their flights and bring them here. It's like a great concept, and it'll be funny to see who copies that concept first. Which I guess Ludwig kind of did with his tournament, but Nintendo's not really going to want to work with Moist Critical and Ludwig either. These guys have made 500 videos talking about how bad Nintendo is, and while I would agree in a lot of respects, I don't have I'm not looking for the Nintendo bag, and so I'm not afraid to criticize them. But fact of the matter is, Nintendo's not going to want to work with people who are going to talk about how bad they are in the next 5 videos whenever they slip up.
Well, especially when it's profanity ridden messages and things like that. I mean, I just don't... Nintendo's never really wanted to get involved with people like that, it seems like. So yeah, I can't really see that happening either. But be interesting to see what Moist does, though, because I do like Charlie, and I think Moist Esports is been really cool, and they seem to have some sort of plan for this. They just signed a bunch of people for Overwatch, I think it was. So, while everybody else is canning their players. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think this might be the final nail in the coffin, Michael. I think this might be the red flare screen that you see when your opponent's on their last stock and you hit them with a strong forward smash at 130 plus. There's no way they can DI it and live. It's just, I think it's over, man.
I don't know what you're talking about. I see that screen all the time when I hit people with Diddy Kong and then they still live.
I honestly hate that screen because it gives people time to DI. You can't do a DI mix-up when people are at high percents. Speaking of Diddy Kong, if you go for a down tilt and then they're DIing away and they're near the ledge, and so it's like, okay, I'm not going to up smash you because you're DIing for the up smash. I'm going to forward air you so that you're DIing into that. But when you get that screen, it gives them time to readjust where they're DIing, and yeah, I hate it. That thing is such a lie on a consistent basis. But anyway, I think that'll about wrap it up. Please make sure you like and subscribe if you like this video and want to subscribe. It would really help us out. We're trying to make this
get to the big 1,000. We've got the watch time. We need the subscribers.
Yeah, just
why do we need subscribers when YouTube has de-emphasized that system for so long that you don't even show up on the main feed when you subscribe? That I'll leave that question to you. But we do need it. So, if you want more We the People, you know where to find that button. Good night, Tri-State area.